Now from the Quran we move to the rights of fellow human beings and fellow Muslims. The Holy Prophet mentioned that the Muslim Ummah is like a body. If one part hurts, the whole body hurts. If we have a toothache, the entire body feels it. If we have a leg cramp, the entire body becomes frozen by it. So that is the nature of the Muslim Ummah. That is the love that we should have for our brothers. He mentions again in a hadith that a Muslim is one from whose tongue and hand others are safe. So we can understand clearly what the concept behind being a good Muslim is. That from our tongue and from our hand, all those people that are around us are safe. We are all Muslims. That's what we have to understand and realize. We were all born as Muslims. Even though you might be a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu now, you were born as a Muslim in the fitrah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are all brothers. In Surah Al-Hujurat, chapter 49, verse 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O people, we created you from the same male and female and rendered you distinct peoples and tribes so that you may recognize one another, not despise one another. The best among you in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is most righteous. So we see that we can be American, we can be European, we can be African, we can be Chinese, we can be Japanese, we can be Australian, Indonesian, Malaysian, whatever we are, Pakistanis or Indians. We have been made into different tribes so that we can recognize one another, not make that as the basis of a dispute or a basis of hate. That is not the reason. Also in the last sermon of the Holy Prophet, he mentioned, no Arab has any superiority over a non-Arab, nor does a non-Arab have any superiority over an Arab, nor does a white man have any superiority over a black man, or the black man any superiority over a white man. You are all the children of Adam, and Adam was created from clay. So that should be absolutely clear, and that should leave no doubt in our mind that we are all equal in the eyes of Allah. Now the extent to which we have been told in the Quran and in the Hadith to unify ourselves, to become united, to become one ummah, to become one nation, is so much that the Holy Prophet says in a Hadith that it is not lawful for a Muslim to be upset or disgruntled with his fellow Muslim for more than 3 days. We cannot even stand for a second that Muslims are split up into factions, or even if they have a dispute over any kind of worldly matter that it is. Now at the same time, we are also encouraged to keep our eyes open and look around us and take care of people who are living around us and take care of their needs as well. Now, it mentions in a hadith of the Holy Prophet where he says, the one who sleeps on a full stomach, knowing fully well that his neighbor is sleeping hungry, does not believe in me. So the Holy Prophet clearly mentions that if you know that your neighbor is sleeping hungry, yet you have the audacity to sleep on a full stomach, it means that you do not believe in the Holy Prophet. Now there are 3 levels to which a Muslim can operate on. The first level being that if I have a plate of food, I call my neighbor over and I say, I'll have one plate and I have some more food with me and you have the other. The second level, the higher level is that I only have one plate of food and I say, come my brother, sit with me. Half of it I'll eat, half of it you eat. And the third and highest level that the Quran teaches us is that I call my neighbor and I say, I won't eat, I'll have a breakfast tomorrow, you eat my food. Because I don't know when he's going to eat next, but I know I can have breakfast tomorrow morning and I can have a full breakfast. And I even give my share, entire share to that person. That is the ultimate level of being a Muslim. That is what Islam teaches us. Again and again it has been mentioned in the Holy Quran that do ihsan, do ihsan. What is ihsan? If somebody does good to me and I do something good back to them, that's not ihsan. I'm just returning a favor. I'm just returning a good deed. If a friend of mine comes and brings a box of chocolates over here and he says, I brought these chocolates for you as a gift, my brother. And I say, thank you very much. And next week I go to his house and I take a box of chocolate for him as well. I'm not doing any ihsan on him. I'm just returning the favor. But ihsan is when people are doing bad against you, they're trying to hurt you or harm you or say bad things to you, you still do good to them. That is ihsan. It's a concept that we must understand. which the Quran has emphasized again and again, that do ihsan on people, ihsan. I will now narrate a story of the Holy Prophet. I'm sure you've probably heard of it, but every time one hears this story, you cannot help but get a tear in your eye. And it's a very important story, and the lesson to learn from the story is fantastic. The Holy Prophet used to go for his Fajr prayers every morning, and every time when he used to go for his Fajr prayers, he used to pass through a particular street. On that street lived an old Jewish woman who did not approve of the Holy Prophet spreading the message of Islam. So every morning when the Holy Prophet used to make his way from his house to the mosque, she used to throw garbage in his way, and sometimes even garbage on him. The Holy Prophet used to go back to his home, change his clothes, do his wudu again, and go back to offer his prayers. This kept on happening every single day without fail. That woman hated the Prophet so much, she used to throw garbage every single day, and the same thing would happen every day. One day, as the Prophet was actually going towards the mosque, he noticed that the woman did not throw garbage on him. So he was a bit curious. So he continued on, went to the mosque, prayed his Fajr namaz, and on his way back, he asked the people that, where's that old lady? She throws garbage on me every day. Where is she today? They said, I think she's not feeling well. So the Holy Prophet went to her house, knocked on the door, asked her permission to come inside. He came inside, he took care of her, gave her water, listened to her. He did her entire housework. He cleaned her house. He sorted her affairs in the house. And then he went and sat next to her and started to comfort her. And that woman was so moved by the personality of this man that she accepted Islam right then and there. This is Islam. Will we do this for someone who is unkind to us? It's a question that we should ask ourselves. We follow Sunnah by keeping a beard, or by keeping our panchas up, or by doing several other things. That this was Sunnah of the Prophet, so we do it. The greatest Sunnah is the personality of the Prophet. Because these are examples in the Holy Quran, not like fairy tales or stories that we read and say, oh wow, well done, clap, 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 and it's over. It's something that we should learn from and try to implement it in our lives. This is what Islam teaches us. This is the beauty of Islam. Islam, I tell you, is such a peace-loving religion. It's such a religion that cares for other people, that it has been mentioned by the Prophet that if you are in the company of others, don't eat onions and garlic, because you might upset them or offend them with your bad breath. This is the level or the degree to which we have been tuned and programmed to work as Muslims. That even don't let your bad breath affect a person who's near you, be he Muslim or non-Muslim. This is the level of kindness that we should, and the level of respect that we should show to others. Unfortunately, what you see happening right now, our current political situation, you see in Sawat, people are being forced to follow Islam, forced to keep a beard, forced to do this, this and this. This is not Islam. I've told you again how compassionate and how considerate Islam is. The beauty of Islam, the way it has spread throughout time, has never been by the sword. The greatest misconception that is in the world today is that Islam was spread by the sword. Give me one incident where Islam was spread by the sword. When Muhammad bin Qasim came to the subcontinent, he came for two reasons. Number one, he heard the cry of his sister who said that remove this evil oppressor Raja Dahir from here. And number two was for business and trade. The people who were living in the subcontinent, how did they accept Islam? Did Muhammad bin Qasim go around and killing people? No, he did not do that. He opened trade. And as he opened trade, people started observing how the Muslims behaved, how the Muslims were united, how they dealt in trade, how they were so truthful and so honest. And one could not help but say, I want to be just like these people. That's how Islam spread. If you look at the current statistics, from 1934 to 1984, Islam has been the fastest growing religion from 1934 to 1984. Tell me, which Muslim battle has happened between 1934 and 1984? And even till today, till 2009, Islam is still the fastest growing religion in the world. It is not only the fastest growing religion in the world, it is the fastest growing religion in North America, in the US, and in Europe as well. And the majority of the people who are accepting as well happen to be women, which is again a misconception that Islam oppresses women. Then why are all our sisters accepting Islam? Once you read, you find out why.